Hello and welcome to Pillar Talk. I am your host, Rochelle Armstrong, and during each episode, we're going to interview guests from different professions, different backgrounds, and based on one of the 12 pillars in my book, Simply Complex, Leading Out of Authenticity, they're going to talk about how that pillar has really shaped their life, their identity, and helping them in becoming the person they are today. So today we have an extraordinary guest. Her name is the Dr. Reverend Pearl Gillespie-Gray. And I am just so honored to have her here to talk about environment and how it has shaped her into becoming the woman she is today. So hello, Reverend Pearl. How are you doing today?
Hello. I am so honored and glad to be here and just excited about life and excited about our time together.
When we chatted the other day, it is just always an honor to speak with you because you have so much wisdom and life experience. And so I mean that sincerely when I say that I am honored and humbled. I know that I'm going to learn a lot. And I know that our guests are going to learn a lot. And so I just ask those of you listening or watching just to join us as friends. Just treat us as friends, and you be sending us positive energy and well wishes. And we're going to go ahead and jump into the interview. Reverend Pearl, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm just going to kick it off, just asking specifically, what type of environment did you grow up in? And how did that impact you negatively and positively? So it's just kind of open for you to talk about.
Okay. Thank you. I was born here in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm the ninth of 11 children. My parents had been married 58 years, and my dad died in 1985. And my dad was one of 21 children. So I was born into a community, family community. And my dad worked 2 full-time jobs in order to support us. But I also got up before he went to work. My parents would be like 112 if they were still living today.
Amazing.
My dad got up before going out and working 16 hours a day, 5 days a week, and maybe 10 to 12 hours on Saturday, because Sunday was church day. And he would get up and help my stay-at-home mom fix a big country breakfast before going out and working all those hours. And they got up early. And I was awakened every morning to the smell of food, the noise of my parents' love preparing the day for all of us kids to get up, homemade biscuits every morning. We had a country breakfast. My dad was from the country and was used to working out in the field and not eating again until he got home, like at sundown,
Yes.
And so that was the way that I was raised. And we had fried chicken and homemade biscuits and pork chops and all of those things that they tell us we shouldn't eat. Well, that's the way I was raised. And so I was waking to all those sounds of them preparing for me and the sound of gospel music every day of my life, as best as I can remember. And you know what? I was mad. As a kid, I was mad because I had to wake up so early and I thought it was just too much. I was not happy that I had to take homemade biscuits and fried chicken for lunch, and my friends had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or bologna sandwiches. I thought there was something not okay with that. I wanted to have cereal for breakfast like all my friends, and I didn't know I had no idea. And that's really why I wanted to talk about environment, because I was nurtured in a wonderful environment, but not really seeing it as such until much later in my life. And I'm so grateful for the environment where people prepared and took care of one another with love, where our faith was part of what we did. Hard work was part of what we did. Going out to work and working to keep the community clean and to make it better every day. And everybody had their chores. These are things we don't hear about today, but and I didn't like that. I did not like it as a kid. I really didn't. And that's why I'm glad you asked that question the way you did, because I didn't like none of this stuff as a kid because I thought it was just too much.
So now, no, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off. Finish your thought, but I'm going to ask you something about that.
Okay. And that meant that I was always connected with other people in the community because I was responsible and accountable, not just to my parents in my home to make it better and to keep it clean and to do the right thing, but also outside. If my parents were not around, that did not mean that I just could do anything I wanted to do because of this community of people that said, you're part of our community. And I didn't appreciate this then. It didn't come across that way. It was came across as these meddling old people get me in trouble and get me a whooping. And that's where it came across then. But looking back on those days, the foundational pieces of who I am and what I honor and cherish and have grown to love came from all of that. Everything I do today comes from that.
So what I will say is part of your story was very nostalgic because I was raised by my grandparents. And so I came up in a very similar background. Now, some parts you mentioned, like in terms of the country living and like the farm. When we went to Alabama, like to my grandfather's family, like we had all of that. Like you ate dinner at 2:00 in the afternoon and it was like a full spread buffet, but you probably wasn't going to eat anything else. Maybe a snack when you got home later that evening. But it was just so much that you talked about that that really resonated with me because I didn't like any of it. Like you said, I had to get up every Saturday morning to gospel music. My grandmother would cook home cooked meals every night. And I wanted McDonald's. I wanted to go to Domino's Pizza. I think back in the day, it was Godfather's Pizza that I wanted to go to. And I wanted cereal, but all those things that I feel like maybe I took for granted growing up as an adult, I can really appreciate, but staying true to you, and I want to focus on you. I heard a few things that made me go, wow. So one, I know you said your father is one of 21. So he has 20 siblings. You said if he was living today, you said he would be 112?
Yes. Both my parents.
Both your parents. So both of them are deceased at this point.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I with the smile on your face, I'm not going to say condolences because with the smile on your face, I believe they had a homegoing celebration indeed, and you're at peace. But doesn't mean you don't miss them, right?
Exactly. I don't think I'll just throw this in for free. I don't think grief never ends because love doesn't die.
Oh, powerful.
I always remember the love I have for them, what they've taught me, and that's how they continue to live because of the foundational pieces that still live in me. Those things about community and working outside the home and inside the home to keep it clean and to make it better and prosperous, to having chores. You get tired, you're frustrated with life and you do whatever you do and you come home. And in our community, even within our home, everybody still had chores to do. We still had stuff to do. So you might take a nap or you might rest for a while, but you still got up. The expectation was, without anybody saying these words, but you still got to do the work of making this community clean and making it better.
So I hear a lot of community. I hear a lot of community in your story. So then, as I talked about your father being one of 21, did you say that you're one of 9?
One of 11. I'm the 9th of 11.
So you're the 9th of 11. So let me correct that. So I didn't come from a big family. So I've always admired big families. And I think that's why I keep hearing this theme of community, because it sounds like you literally and figuratively was in a community within your own home and then also connected with the outer community. So tell me a little more about the region that you grew up in. Like exactly.
I'm from Louisville.
So you are here from Louisville.
My father was from the country. He left the country at age 16 and came to the big city of Louisville, Kentucky, and decided he wasn't going back to the country. He wanted no more parts of the country life.
Okay.
And so he wanted the bright lights in the big city. And
so what part of town? Because I'm from Louisville. I was born in Columbia.
It used to be, I was raised at what used to be the James Bond Elementary, which is where D&C Big School is today. Wow. And the house, the little shotgun house that we lived in was oh God, what was it? It was called Eddie Alley when I was a kid. And then sometime while I was a kid, they named it the Eddie Street. I'm not sure what it's still called, but it's still there today.
Okay.
And everybody knew that. And everybody helped each other in that community, in and outside of home, in ways that we don't do that. There's no way I could not know any more about my neighbors back then than I do today. I don't really know my neighbors in the same way. There's a different expectation and there's a different level of knowing than it was when I was a kid, because I knew what went on. I felt like it for the most part. If somebody else had, if there was an alcoholic family in the home, and there was alcohol in my home too, but there was an alcoholic family in my home, and many times the food, the money wouldn't be brought home to buy food for that family. Wow. And sometimes the woman would have to be out doing the work because the husband didn't bring at their family. And I can remember one time, one of the, I locked the door. The kids next door used to come in, and I thought stole food off our kitchen stove. And I locked the door. And it was one of the worst beatings I ever got in my life because my mom knew this was her way of leaving that door open so those kids would not be hungry. That's the level of sense of community that I'm talking about.
That's deep.
I didn't know this. Huh? It's a different way of feeling community, but that's what I was raised in. And that still lives.
No, I hear that. I see that. And so when I look at you today, because I've heard part of your story, but I don't know all of your story. And I know the servant's heart you have. I know how you always get out in the community. You reach back, you give back, and even personally have really been a blessing to me and constantly just give words of encouragement and inspiration. And you really want to show up for people. So I'm hearing a lot of positivity about your environment and how it shaped you. Can you identify with anything negative for your environment that may have impacted you?
There was alcoholism. There was criminality. There was the double standard of living in a racist world where segregation was part of it. There was not being waited on in stores as long as there were white people and that they need to be waited on. There was a lot of stuff that was going on, but part of what happened was there was sexual molestation and victimization. There was violence. Sometimes people got mad and people got hit, and sometimes the police was caught. So that's another lesson about living that double standard, wearing that mask, those different personas that you talk about, and that mask that you're talking about, wearing a different face from depending on the space we're in. And then all of that stress and all of that trauma for all of that stuff coming over into home. And one of the ways we ate a lot, like food, I still love to eat. A lot of us like alcohol. I don't drink anymore. I'm in recovery from alcoholism, but that was part of what we did to soothe ourselves, to have a safe place within all of this mess. And, and in our faith, I see, from the very beginning, as far back as I can remember, I was irritable, restless, and discontent. I call my family the looking good family.
Talk about it.
We look good on the outside, and there were great things about us. I think I've told you some of those. And there's a lot more and we're an intelligent group of people. Yeah. And everybody in my family has been successful in their own ways of doing what we're doing. We probably could have been a lot more successful without many of the barriers, external and internal barriers that we face. The degradation of being molested as a child, for me, it just something died inside of me in that molestation. And it didn't just happen in my home. It happened in my community, and it also happened in my church. So for many parts of my life, I was concerned about this God thing. If God was good, and I kept hearing different messages. I want you to hear the duality. All the different, God is good, and all this great music of faith, and going to church and praying and all this stuff. And then the devil moves in at the house, and all of these things that are going on in the house, that are in the family, in the community. Something was wrong. There was fraud in the family. There was fraud in our community that we never really talked about. It just was part of it. And then we go and So that whole double standard, double living, the duality of being one thing, one place, and one somewhere, one other place. And being able to be excited with having the money in my hand as a kid. And I get to go buy some snacks for myself. And I'm glad to do that. I've got my allowance. I'm going to buy some snacks. And I'm ready to get up to the counter. And I've made up my mind. I know exactly what I'm going to buy. And then a white person walks in. Then I get pushed back because I can't wait it on as long as a white person is into the store. So there was a lot of stuff.
So this is what's so special about interviewing you, Reverend Pearl, is you do come from a different generation that I have not had the privilege of having this type of conversation with. On this level. Like I've been, again, my grandparents died young, my parents died young. And so for me to be able to really talk to you and hear these stories, it's kind of selfish. Like I want our listeners to glean from your experiences and learn. And it helps give us a sense of gratefulness. But I don't know what that feels like to have that trauma at home or like you said, even at church, but you're enduring all this, you're surviving, but then you're going out into the world, putting a face on, pretending everything is okay. But then the degradation and the dismissiveness of white people once you do go out into public spaces, like how devastating is that really? Do you want to give us a little more insight into that?
I'll say it's simply complex. Simply complex. And the complexity of that is still being unraveled in my psyche to this day. And I'll be 75 if I live to do a couple of more months. It's still in I find that what I don't really want to get into this deeply, but racism for me and the institutional structures, the institutionalized, I was familiar with. What I'm coming to terms with even better today is how much of that have I internalized without knowing it. For instance, for a lot of years, I've done a lot of different things. And I've talked a lot about these things in some of the courses that I taught. I used to teach at Spalding. And I can remember having large group discussions about racism and all kinds of things and cultural competence in our practice and all those kind of things. And there was several exercises that we would often do. And at that particular time when I was teaching, a lot of the people, except me, they would go around the room and they would say, I don't see color. I don't see color. And everybody would say, I don't see color. And when they got to me, I said, please see my color. Because if you don't see my color, you don't have any clue of who I am. Because I'm not on a level playing field, never have been. And so it's important for you to understand my color so you can at least maybe have some insight of what my experience is, because it's not the same experience you have. And the other example I would use to go, and then we can move on to something else, that I caught myself doing things that I didn't believe. For instance, if I'm riding down the street in my car and I go by a group of white males, I don't think anything about it. But if they're young Black males, I make sure my doors are locked. For me, that's internalized racism. I don't believe that. I don't believe that, but I act like I do. So I've been around it so much and I've heard so much of it, even without realizing some of it has gotten into me. And I act like I believe what I don't believe. And I think that's not just true for me, it's true for all of us.
No, it absolutely is true for all of us. So one of the courses that I facilitate in a training that I went through is about unconscious bias. So what you just described is what we all have, which are unconscious biases. And for anyone to say they don't, they're telling a little bit, because like you said, you're doing those things unknowingly. Now, what I believe is we all have conscious biases. We all have biases. Like I'm biased to you because I know you and love you. I don't expect someone to feel the same way about you that I do that don't know you. So that's a very conscious bias that I'm aware of. I even have deeper conscious biases that we're not going to waste time to share right now. But there are certain things that have been conditioned in us that even when it comes to our own social group, because it's far beyond race, right? Because I'm sure
Oh
just
yeah.
like myself, I have friends of other races and ethnicities who experience
Yeah.
their own racism or microaggressions or hate,
All of
bigotry.
that.
And so we all experience it on some level. And so where I was kind of digging deeper with you is you go through those things that everybody else was going through, but then that extra layer of once you went out, after being through whatever you've been through, you still got a second blow, if you will, for lack of a better word, of either racism or being treated differently because of the color of your skin.
Yeah, and the same for me, gender,
Yeah.
gender. That's another issue, and and I may not change all of that. My goal is, I think that's darkness. That's darkness in a way, that's evil, that's wickedness, that I don't want to be a part of. And even though I'm in it, I don't have to be a part of it. And my job, as I understand it, to be here as a person of faith, as a person of community and family, a person that has been shown a different way, is to be that light in the dark places.
Yeah.
I don't have to be dark because you're dark. I don't have to be, I don't have to, I can poke a hole in the darkness. I can I can be aware of what I call internalized racism. And I love the word bias too. And I know that my experience though is we keep changing the names of things and we want to make them different because as part of that fragility, because we don't want to talk about racism. So we talk about bias. It's a simpler way of saying that, in a sense, that's just my opinion, and I'm full of them, but that's my experience. And so, but you're really right in what you say. But I don't have to not say that for me. I can say, I'm going to poke a hole in it. I am not going to let it define me, or deter me, or delay me. I've got a mission that I'm set on, and I've got a path and a purpose for this life. And I won't let that environment keep me from being what I need to be. And what I have been created to be. But I see it.
Yes. No, yes. And as I'm listening to you, I'm empowered and I feel stronger and I feel encouraged. And this is why I believe that we need to hear people's stories. We're one of many people in the world. And, most of the time, we do get to hear a lot about celebrities or like people on bigger platforms. But for me, it was really important for everyday people that I cross paths with, that people hear their stories. I feel like you matter. I feel like the last interview with the amazing woman who I interviewed, she matters. And whomever I cross paths with, but so often, because we don't have a certain title or not affiliated with a certain group, or we don't have a certain platform, our stories go untold. And so I don't feel like necessarily that there's anything special about me to be able to write a book or start a podcast or to even interview other people like you. But what I do believe is I have a call in my life. And if I would do that unto the Lord, and that if someone can be inspired, if somebody's life can be touched, or if somebody can be changed, then it's all worth it. And so that's why we're here today. And so I'm so happy that you said that you just want to be used. And that it's about a very calling. It's not about you. And so as we kind of segue maybe into more positive things about how your environment has really shaped you, I heard a lot about your upbringing and where you came from. I hear your conviction and where you're at today. Somewhere in the middle, Reverend Pearl, tell us a little more about how your environment shaped your identity, maybe during those middle years. Does that question make sense to you?
One of the I'm not sure. Can you say that a different way? Because I'm not sure I know what.
Absolutely. So how I'm going to word it is, one time I heard a message and the speaker said that there is the first half in life, there's a second half, and there's halftime. So for me, when I think numerically, I kind of think about first half might be like maybe 0 to 40 years old. And then I think halftime, depending on the person, might be somewhere between 41 and let's say 50 as you're going into halftime. I think halftime is 40. And then we're kind of launched over into the second half, which might be like 52, 55 on through the rest of our lives. So you said you're 70, you would be, what did you say, 72?
75. I'll be 75 in July.
75. So where I'm kind of getting at is, as we heard a lot about your upbringing, the good, the bad, the empowerment, the community, I heard kind of like your beliefs and where you're at today. So to me, I kind of feel like you're probably in second half, if you would agree. And so somewhere around that middle, around halftime, I'm interested. Who were you at that time in your life, and how did your environment shape you?
I was, let's see, that's a great question. I have to think. It's hard for me to connect. I hear what you're saying, but it's hard for me to disconnect it, because what I really want for me, everything that I did shaped me for my middle. So I can't really talk about the middle without at least. And one of the things that shaped me, my parents were uneducated people.
Okay.
And they were people of faith. I don't know where they got that idea about education and doing the best and excellence. I don't know where that came from, but it came. And so that was part of, even in the midst of all of that, there was this thread that said, you will do excellently, the expectation. Nobody ever told me I was at risk because I got free lunch.
I know
nobody ever told me that I couldn't be successful. My teachers, I went to all Black schools for the most part up until I was in the 7th grade. They never thought I could not be anything I wanted to be. And they never told me that. You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
So those pieces were part of my resolving in my psyche too, with all that other garbage, you know what I'm saying, and all the other stuff. It's a mix of all of that, but the constant thread of you can excel, you can do it. So when I was in my 40s, for the first time, I never thought about, we thought about back then about finishing high school.
Yes.
And I never even considered college when I was a kid. But around 30s, I'm in college. And my goal, I can remember, was by the time I had my 40th birthday, I got my first master's degree.
Master's degree. So how many master's degrees do you have, Reverend Pearl?
Master's degree and an honorary doctorate. Yes.
Well, of course.
Yeah. But because where did they get that to educate us when they had no, neither my dad, dropped out of school because he was a farm boy, and
then that's right, very common.
Wonder where and so my mom had a illness, a blindness that she had and being poor without those kind of resources. Well, we wasn't even considered poor people. Somebody white told me when I was in my 20s that I wasn't considered poor. I never thought of myself as poor. I just didn't in one way or the other, because we always said, it may not been what we wanted, but I always had something to eat and the utilities long. That was not my story. But my mom had was blind as a young child, and just like her, it just came like this, and it was gone, and it came back months later. And then she had this blindness again when she was in the 8th grade, and she never went back to school. So this one, she got out of school, but her sight came back. She just never did finish school. So where did they get that? And I think it was in their faith. It was in their trust and reliance on a power greater than themselves, that was greater than circumstances. It's one thing to find, I'm the descendants of slaves. I have a history that may have been stolen, because I don't know, I can't connect in a lot of ways with that. But oh God, I forgot what I was going to say. I'm getting excited. I'm passionate about it.
No, you are very passionate. And we're just having a conversation, so take your time.
Yeah, I come from good roots and good genes and people of faith, and the faith that they found under all of that oppression. How did they get that? You know what I'm saying? It's not the same. If I'm the one welding the slave whip and I got faith, that's one thing. But how do you find a God when you're the one that's been beaten down? How do you make a connection that there's a brighter day and a better way of doing this life? How does that happen? I don't know. But I know that I've experienced that power, and that power is what I call God. That power is what I call resilience. That power is what I call wisdom. And it's the same tenacity that I came from. I came from that greatness, even as far back to people that I may never know. And so what I do today says something about the people that came before me. They labored hard in ways that I can only imagine, so that I could be here today. And that's
You're
part of my
carrying
journey.
legacy. Yeah, well, you're definitely carrying the torch and you're definitely leaving behind an incredible
Mhm.
legacy. And no, I sense the excitement and the joy. Like you feel honored to be who you are
Yeah,
and to come from where you came from. And I do too. And no matter what
yeah,
we've been through, we know that it instills a determination and, like you said, a faith. And so, one thing I was
yeah.
really careful to do, people who
Uh-huh.
know me personally know that I'm unapologetically, I'm a Christian, I'm a God girl, I'm a woman of God. I love the Lord. However, I did write a book for all people because I believe
Mhm.
that God has a different call on everyone and how some people
Mhm.
minister differently. I didn't want to just speak to a Christian audience. I wanted to speak to
Mhm.
all people. So even if someone has a different belief than me, that we can still learn something from one another. And it's not
Oh,
necessarily about me trying to win you over with my God or you're trying to win me over with yours. But I think one of the
yeah.
things that we struggle with in the world is not wanting to seek understanding. And
Mhm.
that's where so much, I think, crime and hate and discord comes from, is we just don't take time to understand people. And so
Yeah.
one of the reasons I want to interview people and like have these conversations is I want people from different backgrounds and different
Sure.
professions to hear people like you. I want
Yes.
them to hear like some of the things you had to go through from your own mouth. So many
Yeah.
times, whether if it's a textbook or through somebody else's experience or a white paper or an article, but I want people to hear from like real life, everyday people. And so, one of the things I want to ask you is, what advice would you give someone who may feel hopeless, who may feel like because of the environment that they are growing up in or grew up in, they feel like it has defined them. They feel like because of the choices they made, because of what they went through, has now gave them hopelessness and they feel like
Mm.
it defined them. What encouragement would you give that person?
I would tell them to stay connected. I think the essence to me of my faith and my understanding of life as it is, even as back far as being connected with something greater than me, my family, my
Yes.
parents. Even you and I are more powerful than me by myself. Stay connected with the positive energy that you want to exude. It's so easy to try to put your arms around yourself and run around with the chickens when you want to fly like an eagle. But chickens and eagles don't hang out together. They just don't. And so, and sometimes in our woundedness and our hurt, I want to salve my own wound and hurt myself. We can't heal it by ourselves. We can't make a difference by ourselves. But see, I need you to encourage me, and you need me to encourage you. And if we encourage one another, we got a shot. But over here by me, with me, these people that are scared as I am, we don't even, I don't even have a shot. I really don't.
So
And
true.
and 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 that's one of the things that, as a people of color, that we have had down through my life. Always, we were made to be together. And it was in that togetherness and connection that we came up with creative ways to live and to manage as best we could, despite all kinds of circumstances. But over here by myself, I'm gonna pray for anything that comes, because I'll take the first thing running that says, "Oh, I love you, I like you, you're mine," and it's the connection. And I like there's a analogy I have about porcupines. It says that when porcupines get scared, that their quills get so sharp that they really even more prickly and stickly. That's when they get real cold. But the other thing about them that porcupines have to realize is that they don't have enough body heat by themselves to keep themselves warm when the weather gets cold enough. And the only way they're going to survive is if they stay with a bunch of other porcupines. But it's hard and it's prickly and it's stickly and it's painful. But if they're going to survive, they got to stay together. And that's the
Beautiful.
way we are. I don't have to like it.
That's
I
right.
just know that I need, yeah.
We need
Because
each other.
whatever, yeah, we can do this together. But by myself, I'm subject to die and go through all kind of things all by myself. And
But
that's just not
again,
that's
that's just rooted in you. Community has been rooted in you, and you continue to carry that on through your legacy. So, the last question I'm going to ask you, Reverend Pearl, and I'll ask this of all the guests. You did touch on it earlier already. You really did talk about why you chose environment. But just in closing, I want our guests to hear, why is it that you chose environment to describe how it has really shaped the woman you are today?
Thank you so much, because that's a perfect ending. What I started out doing, I've enlarged. I got a larger group of folk that I hang out with, and I still have that environment around me. That no, don't just say go, go, go. You're doing the right thing. They say you can do better than that, Pearl. It doesn't sound like you, Pearl. They help me accountable. They help me to see what I can't see. They help me, give me perspective and shape me in a way. The same, it's so simple.
Okay.
But by myself, I have all the insecurities of any other human being. But when I'm with a group that is propelling me forward, it's easier for me to move in the direction that I believe is my purpose and why I'm here.
Very powerful. I knew that this was going to be a treat, and I knew that it would be very inspirational, but yet hopeful. I think in the world that we live in, we all need hope. And that's despite a pandemic. I think we need it more now, more than ever, but we just need hope. And so I appreciate your time and your story of hope, Reverend Pearl. And I'm going to encourage you to keep leading out of authenticity, because that's what you do. And so for our listeners, to those of you who are either tuned in audibly or you're watching visibly, I just want to kind of do a recap of all of the tips that Reverend Pearl gave us today. So just right out the gate, you got to have a community. And if you don't have that community because you were born into a large family like she was, be intentional about selecting a community that's going to help encourage you. You're going to also encourage. She said, I have people who hold me accountable, not just allow me to do what I want to do. That if I'm not working up to what they know I can do, they're saying, Pearl, that's not you. You can do better. So make sure that you have a community of not people who's just going to stroke your ego, not people who just make you feel good about yourself, but people who's going to hold you accountable and want to see you be your best self. And the other thing that we're going to leave with you, it doesn't matter what you've been through. She talked about even some of the horrific things that had happened, some of the things that she had to conquer and overcome. But I hope you heard what I heard. It didn't stop her. If anything, it propelled her forward to be the best person she can be. But what's so beautiful about her story is that she's bringing others along so that you can be your best self as well. And so my hope is, as we continue to do these interviews and people continue to share their stories, that we have other people who will sign up. You can go to www.rochellearmstrong.com, fill out the contact information, and we can schedule an interview. Or hopefully, even you can just contact me through the website if you do have questions or if you have comments. I do plan on following back up with the guests. And hopefully in the future, we can have them on here again. But we just want to stay connected. And so our hope is you will continue to lead out of authenticity, and hope that you will tune in to future episodes of Pillar Talk with Rochelle. Thank you for joining us today.